Welcome to another edition of Mortgage Talks. I'm your host, Adam Hires. I have an amazing guest on here today. I get excited about a lot of guests I have on here. This particular one, this gentleman, I'll introduce here shortly, is at that top of that list. Top the food chain on sales acumen. If you're looking for a different way to start your dialogue, to do things different than everybody else out there in your marketplace is doing it, have different conversations, opening up conversations, and stop smacking people in the face with trying to close them down. And the old canned things that you probably have been taught, one thing that my coaching program we're actually putting together, be launching here soon with one of the guys that my business partner, we believe the same way is what you're going to hear on here today from this gentleman is stop trying to close people. I know that that's counterintuitive to the loan game, close more loans, but I honestly try to get closing out of my whole conversation altogether. Even when I say closing another deal, it's, because we say closing houses, just served another client, because that's how far away I want to get. And I want you all to get away from even bringing up the word closing. So real quick, my journey in a new state, my mission to do 150 loans in a new state with no context. It's going well. I'm starting to really lay some foundation here, getting referrals, getting new referral partners. Some of that is because the sales dialogue I learned from the gentleman I have originally. I'll go through some of that as we go. But if you're out there and you're doing 40 loans a month, you're doing 50 loans a month, there's a better way. You can work on your sales acumen. You can work on speaking to clients just a little bit differently, referral partners a little bit differently, operating just at a different tempo. You can do that 150 loans, 200 loans in a year. So don't give up on that. We got some exciting things coming out here very soon for you, the loan officer. So tune in. But without further ado, I got to get into it because this is great. I have on here Jeremy Miner. How you doing?
Hey, Adam, thanks for having me on here. You're going to have to excuse me. I'm still in quarantine. I got COVID about 8 days ago, and I'm like maybe 50%. So like, if I stop and like, it's because I still have the freaking cough. So thanks for having me on here. You said one thing there I wanted to clarify there. We're still going to get your process. We're still going to close.
Right.
But the way we do that, because obviously you're not going to make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in your specific industry, as a mortgage, broker or real estate agent or whoever the people you train, they're not going to make a lot of money if they don't know how to close. But the way we close is we're going to learn how to get your prospects to close themselves rather than you chasing after them, using sales techniques that work against human behavior. So you have to learn how to work with techniques that work with human behavior. So instead of the push-pull dynamic where you're pushing, and a human being does what? Pushes back. Yep. That's just human nature 101, psychology. We're going to learn the right questions to ask at the right time that get your prospects to pull you in. That is a significant mindset shift in how we view ourselves as professional salespeople.
Absolutely. That's that's why I'm so excited, because we're going to open up some great dialogue here. But the point is out there is like, just it's a different way of talking to your clients, of moving the needle. And one of the things I like, even your title for your podcast, make sure out there you all listen. Closers are losers. I love the title. I've been just like, I came across it, I don't know, about a month ago or so. I came across Jeremy a long time ago, but I'm like, wow, okay, he's got this podcast. I can't believe I didn't come across this earlier. And I've just been listening to it. I went on a road trip and listening to it. But to tell you all real quick, and I'm going to open this up for Jeremy, but I want to tell you my story with this gentleman and why you want to continue to listen is that when I came into mortgage industry about 5 years ago, I was running Ashley Furniture, and I was coaching sales staff, and I was doing really well. And I always believed a different way of selling. And Ashley they had their own programs, and it just never felt right. It always, I always went against a lot of the stuff they did. And guess what? I was pretty good at what I was doing because I believed in human psychology, and I never believed in the old tactics and all this stuff. But then I went in the loan game, and I was like, well, I'm not as good as what I think I am, because it's all commission. I've got to come out of the gate strong. Yeah. I came across one of Jeremy's programs out there. Is just a free 21-day sales challenge, and it immediately spoke to me because it was a different way. It was human psychology, working with human behavior, all these things we're going to talk about. And then I got a big commission check early on. I plopped down money to do one of his trainings, and again, it helped me with my dialogue, and I was able to get more referral partners, move the conversation along, lose less deals when things didn't go right. Yeah. All these things because of a lot of sales dialogue and just working with the human behavior, as he says. And I tell you, so if you want to invest in his program, I really firmly
and you were in our old program. You were like in our original program called 8-Week Academy. Yes. Our sales training program now, our NEPQ 3.0 training is like twice the training, twice the content. I think the program you went through was like 7 or 8 hours. It's now like 16 to 17, whole different level in our virtual training platform. But you said something that we should probably comment on. One thing that my degree in I'd never finished my degree. I actually have 13 credits left. But when I was in college, I actually dropped out my senior year because I was making so much money as a salesperson. I was making like 5 times more a year than my professors were. They were teaching me like algebra. So I'm like, what do I need this stupid degree for? But my major was in behavioral science with a minor in human psychology. Okay. And so basically what I started learning is that the way most salespeople are taught, there's 3 basic eras of sales and sales training. Okay. Aaron, if anybody wants to write this, everybody should write this down. Era number one is considered boiler room selling. Everybody knows what I mean. If you've watched like Wolf on Wall Street, posture them, push them into something you want them to do, assume the sale, always be closing, you're selling the opportunity. Hey, I've got a great opportunity for you. Yeah. That's era 1 type of sales training. That came out in the 60s, 70s, 1980s. That's really where that came from. Okay. Now, era 2 selling was more consultative selling. That actually came out in the late 1980s with a book that was revolutionary at that point called Spin Selling. I don't know if you've ever heard of Spin Selling. Mm-hmm. Spin Selling was done by a professor. He wasn't even a salesperson. He was a professor of human psychology. And basically he went around, traveled the globe, interviewed thousands of salespeople, had all this data. And he taught that you had to ask questions to find out the needs of your prospect. Nobody knew that at that point, right? So you'd ask questions like, what's your biggest problem that you have, or what keeps you awake at night? Those are all consultative questions. You're asking a logical based question, but what's the problem with only asking logical based questions? When you ask a logical based question, what type of answer does your prospect give you? Surface, logical based answers in return. And do people buy on logic or emotion? 100% emotion. Brain studies prove that, okay? So more persuasive than era 1 type of salesmanship where you're like manipulating them, pressuring them, pushing them into something you want them to do, but you're still having to play the numbers game because very little emotion is brought out by simply asking logical based questions, okay? So now we're in era number 3, ERA. This COVID is killing my brain. So we're in era number 3, and that's where we're most persuasive when we allow others to persuade themselves, right? You call that dialogue. That's when we have to learn how to ask what are called NEPQ, stands for neuro emotional persuasion questions that get the prospect to persuade themselves. Okay. So here's what you have to consider. When I'm at events and I go through those three different eras of sales, training, and sales, and I ask how many of you, push them, will them, deal them, sell on the opportunity, manipulate them, pressure them. Do you know what the percentage of the room that raises their hand? About 80% of the room still uses those techniques. That's what they've been taught by their company or by what I call the old sales gurus, right? Then I ask people, who's in here learned consultative selling, how to ask questions to find out their needs? Usually about another 12, 13, 14% raise their hands, okay? Yeah. When I ask them who's in error 3, that, using dialogue, NEPQ, nobody, hardly anybody raises their hand, okay? And here's the problem with that. If you're still using sales techniques, okay, in error 1 and error number 2, but your consumer is in error number 3, do you see the friction of why you're triggering so much sales resistance and objections from your prospects when you're talking to them? Is because today's consumer doesn't want to be talked at and sold to. They want to be asked, heard, and most importantly, understood. It's a major difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I know all this, what you say, because I listen to you all the time, and this is 100%. If somebody's hearing this for the first time, I hope you really took that in. I believe the reason why companies teach the old school techniques is 2 reasons. I believe, now I can get your thought is that 1, they don't know any better. And 2, even if they know better, I feel like some of them just don't want to invest as much time, because it's easier to just say, here's a script, just do this. Because your program, or any program that's trying to operate at your type of level, that activity, it takes work to get really good at it. But once you are, of course, then the sales become a lot easier. But the upfront work, I believe, is why people don't do that. They just don't want to invest in that amount of time to say, okay, well, I'm going to slow down for a second, get this right, and then work through this. And then all of a sudden, boom, I'm going to hit the rocket.
If you're a sales professional, or if you're a business owner, your whole dependency, your whole income is based on your sales. I mean, it's all based on your sales. So if you're just handing them a script and saying, go get them, Tiger, hopefully we'll make some sales, you are literally winging it. And your business that you own is in jeopardy because your salespeople don't know how to communicate to today's cautious, skeptical buyers. I mean, you are literally playing the roulette wheel, right? You're basically just chancing it out. But when you know the right questions to ask, when you know how to ask them at the right time, at the right tone, which we train you in all of our sales training curriculum and courses, selling becomes step by step. It's a structure. Okay. We start off connecting questions that put the focus off of you, take the focus off you, the salesperson, and puts it on your customer. First part of persuasion. Okay. Then we ask situation questions to find out what their present situation is and help them find out what their present situation is. I could keep going in there, but it's a step-by-step sales structure that your sales people follow that gets you predictable results. So there's no ups and downs and ups and downs. It's like this. Sales are like this, continue to go up. Big difference in income as a business owner and as a sales professional. I read in Forbes a couple months ago that the average sales professional in North America, guess how much they spend on sales training on a yearly basis?
$100.
Less than $100. Less than $100. You're telling me that you're a sales professional that wants to make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. You want to make at least multiple 6 figures, I'm assuming. That's why you got into sales. But you're only willing to invest $100 into your training to get to that level? How are you ever going to get to that level? When I got into sales, I struggled really bad. We can go to my store if you want, but I ended up spending thousands of dollars from, behavioral scientists and psychology to put together NEPQ. And eventually I became one of the highest paid sales professionals in the world. Like if you Google my name, I think I was number 45 in the world, highest paid salespeople in any industry selling anything. I made close to $3 million a year in straight commissions in 12 years, 12 straight years in 4 completely different industries. Now, I didn't do that because I got lucky. It's because I dedicated the time and I put my money where my mouth was, and I learned advanced skills to be able to make that income. If I had just read a book, and hoped it worked out, I wouldn't be on here with you today at all.
Yeah, you can tell you put the time in, you put that effort in, you studied the craft, you continue to study the craft. And what you just talked about, your program, when you said, hey, my program's got so much more, I was like, well, no doubt, I'm sure it has. It's got more and more dialed in. You've made little tweaks here and there. I mean, because that's what makes you
we're always making it better to get salespeople and companies even more results. My good friend Brad Lee always says, is training something you did, or is training something you do? If you want to be a top salesperson and make, 200,000, 300,000 a year, 400,000 a year plus, training is something you're doing on a daily and weekly basis. If you want to be a professional athlete, a basketball player, do you think they just train a couple times and then all of a sudden they make it and they don't have to train anymore? No, they're continually training every single day because they know if they don't, they're going to go down. They're going to lose their job. They're not going to make as much money. It's the same thing in sales, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I really love you say, and I've taught this, and of course, I always continuously, this is one of my forefronts of what I'm thinking when I call someone. Is most people are taught to be really excited and show excitement to and so it kind of looks like this. Hey, Jeremy, hey, guess what, man? And we're closing deals down quick. And hey, man, I love an opportunity to sit down for coffee and meet with you. And you should send me clients, right? That's kind of how it looks. But I think it's great to be excited about what you do, and you need to believe in what you do, but you can't project that immediately onto who you're calling, because it creates sales resistance
100%
right off the bat. We 100%. All have it.
You have to keep the excitement internally, not external. There's a huge myth that it comes from Zig Ziglar. You got to realize Zig Ziglar learned how to sell when? 1950s, 1960s? Early 70s, the consumer was completely different than they are today. Okay. Like if you called on the phone in 1965, there wasn't any way for them to screen the call. They weren't getting cold calls left and right. The consumer in that day, they were taught that you needed to inform them what your products and services are. If you do that now, completely different results. First of all, they don't even have a home phone. They have a cell phone. Second of all, they're going to screen your calls. So you're more than likely never going for them to pick up. Okay. So you got to realize consumer buying habits have shifted dramatically, even in the last 5 to 10 years, because of the power of the internet and especially social media. We live in a completely different age. The consumer knows all about you. By doing a Google search on their computer, they know who your competitors are. They know how much your product or service is. They know what you do. They know your price points. They know where your corporate office is. All they have to do is Google it and pull it up on their freaking smartphone. Okay. So because of that newfound power, most consumers know they have many choices to choose the exact product or service that you sell. So you have to understand, what we teach companies and salespeople is you have to become what we call problem finders and problem solvers, not product pushers. Okay. Now think about this. What do most salespeople do? Okay. When they first start talking to their prospects, they ask a few logical based questions. Can you tell me about this? Can you tell me about that? What's your biggest problem? And then they do what? They go into sales pitch mode. Okay. Yeah. Talking about the product and features and the benefits. And we have the best this and we have the best that. Which, by the way, every salesperson says they have the best product or service. How many salespeople, Adam, do you know that try to sell you something that tell you, oh, yeah, our product's just fifth best in the market? Nobody. They all say they're the best. And so because of that, when you say things like that to your prospects, it automatically triggers sales resistance, because every single salesperson that they talk to every single day, every single week, every single month says the exact same thing. So it automatically goes in one ear, boop, out the other. It's like taking a bucket of mud, okay, and throwing it up against the wall, hoping and praying that something we're going to say is just going to magically stick with the prospect and they're just somehow going to want to buy from us. Okay.
Right.
And that's such a hard and unpredictable way to make a living. So in our day and age, you have to be even better at problem finding. You know, you can read any book here up on the shelf and it'll say you need to be a problem solver. Well, yeah, that's true. But you can't solve their problem unless they buy from you. So in our day and age, you have to be better at problem finding. And that means uncovering challenges and problems that your prospect doesn't even know they have. Realize when you first start talking to your prospects, most of them don't even know they have a problem. Or maybe they know they have a problem, but they don't know how bad the problem really is, or what the consequences are if they don't do anything about solving the problem. So if you don't know the right questions to ask to help them uncover their own problems in their mind, and maybe other problems they didn't even think about, it's impossible for them to buy from you so that you can actually solve their problems. So write this down. You have to be a problem finder and problem solver, not a product pusher. Massive difference.
Yeah, and I want to go through a few things there, and how that relates directly. Is that you know, one first I'll say that I was in the industry for 6 months, and I was at a conference, a regional conference. And there's hundreds of loan officers there, and they had me get up and speak like, how in the heck in 6 months are you crushing this many deals? And so I did 20 loans in that one singular month, which is, in the top 1% type of area. Right.
Yeah.
So, and like, how'd you do that? Well, then I kind of talked about some of these things. And so I had these loan officers would call me, and, after they just called me up, it's like, man, I'm doing this, and I'm going here. And we had this at the time where I was at, they had this like really good, Kool-Aid, man, that everybody would drink, where, what their system was and what you would pitch to people. It was literally like a pitch, right?
Oh, I hate that word.
Right. I know.
Ditch the pitch.
I know, right? So they would call me, and they'd say, I can't get it. I'm meeting with these real estate agents, but I can't get them to send me any business. Or I'm like, okay, let's go over what you talked about. And boom, right off the bat, all they just, the mud, right? And it was how they went about, our company, process loans. And I'm like, whoa, like that, you can't do that. You don't even know what the issue is, and you don't know, you don't know it all.
You're not involving them in the process.
Yeah, they don't really. And so what I'll say is that and then also when you said about, hey, listen, finding the problem that they don't know they had. For example, the other day I had this type of dialogue with a real estate agent. You out there, loan officers, listen, is that when we dove into it, she didn't know she had a problem with how many deals she was losing because the loan officer wasn't following up, because the market right now is taking longer for people to go under contract.
Yeah.
And then when you got into a little bit more of like the emotion of, man, that's costing me some good money, that was able to have a deeper rooted reason why that we could help them. Yeah. And then the third thing I want to say is, I call this, because this is not about trickery. This is the most beautiful, elegant thing to do, and the most helpful thing to do for your clients. If you're using this type of NEPQ, because it's a love language. Yeah. Like, you're finding what their problems are and then you're seeing if you can even help them in the first place. That's huge. That's a love language.
It's really up to you as a sales professional with your prospects. I hate the term. Oh, I hate this term. It's so annoying to me when people say buyers are liars. prospects only lie to you because the way you've been taught how to communicate to them, period. So it's up to you. Like when you learn the right questions to ask at the right time in the conversation, okay, your prospects start to pull you in. Like you talked about with this other client that you have now, they start to pull you in because they start to realize all these other problems they didn't even know they had. And when you help them realize that, they start to view you as more of the trusted authority or the expert, whereas they view all other salespeople over here as just somebody trying to stuff their solution down their throat. So they completely tune everybody else out, okay? And they start to view you as the person that can get them where they want to go. Everybody right now is in what we call here's their current situation or their current state. Here's where they want to be. We call that their objective or future state. Now, what's the gap in between? The problems that your questions have helped them realize in their own mind that they didn't even think they had. So your questions determine if the prospect stays in status quo and nothing ever changes for them, or if they're able to buy from you to actually get them where they want to go. It is up to your communication skills. It's not the prospect, it's you.
I love what you say. Absolutely. I mean, they don't trust you if they're not. That's why they're lying too, because they don't trust that you're going to handle that information correctly, or they just don't trust you in general. And that's a big part of it. The trust is gone, and they don't trust you, or they don't trust the process, or whatever.
There's reasons for that. Everybody has to understand in the first 10 to 15 seconds of any sales conversation, whether it's in person, whether it's on the phone, whether it's on Zoom or in a boardroom meeting or door to door. I mean, it does not matter, B2B, B2C, it doesn't matter what you sell. Your prospects are picking up on social cues from your verbal and your nonverbal, from your tone and what you are saying and asking that trigger their brain to respond one of two ways. If you don't know what you're doing, if you don't know the right questions to ask, it triggers what? Massive sales resistance, objections very quickly. We don't need it. We already have that. She's not in right now. He can't talk to you. Can you call me back in a week, a month, a year later? Or if you know what questions to ask in the beginning of that conversation, it triggers their brain to become so curious that they feel like they have to engage with you. Otherwise, they're missing out on something that could be important for them. It's a massive difference in your sales results and your income.
Absolutely. And you out there, loan officers, for example, if you're meeting with, 50 real estate agents a year, and let's just say that you're not getting 50, the 50 are not sending you business, or you'd be doing massive amounts, especially the ones that actually can send you good amount of deals. So you've missed out a lot of those. I mean, what if you by NEPQ or having those real sales dollars, you could pick up 10 more agents in a year's time, or 15 more agents, whatever that number is. Let's just say 10, and 10 were able to give you, let's say, one deal a month. Okay, so you're going to get an extra 10 deals a month just from that. An average commission for a loan officer somewhere between, depends, $2,000 to $3,000. Let's just say $2,000. That's $20,000. So an extra $240,000 a year. Is it worth investing time to go in a program like Jeremy's, or a program like mine, or whatever, and getting in there and having better, deeper rooted conversations to pick up $240,000 plus a year by having deeper rooted conversations with people out there? So I think it's a little bit of a problem, right?
I think you hit it right on the head. When I'm usually doing when I'm up on stage training salespeople or companies or whatever, I typically ask everybody in the audience at the very end, what's your biggest expense in life? So I say, hey, what's your biggest expense in life? People say, my mortgage, my kids, my taxes, my this, my that. And I said, actually, those are good expenses, but your biggest expense in life is your lack of knowledge. Let me repeat that. Your biggest expense in life is your lack of knowledge of not knowing the right sales skills to be able to make at least 300,000 plus a year or more as a sales professional. And then what I do is I have them all write, and everybody can do this right now. If you want to write it down on a piece of paper, what did you make last year as a sales professional? Was it 30 grand? Was it 60 grand? Was it 80, 120, 150, whatever it was, write that down. If it was 300, write down 300. Okay. I'm just going to give you some average numbers. Let's say that you above average salesperson, you made $80,000 in commissions last year. Okay. Let's say, so I want you to write down 300,000, or actually write down 350,000. Let's think a little bit bigger. Write down 350,000. And right below that, write down how much you made last year in commissions. Let's say if you made 80,000, write down 80,000. Now, I want you to subtract 380,000 from 350,000. What does that leave you? $270,000. That's what you paid life last year because you still have not learned the right skills, the right questions that work with human behavior, the right tonality to be able to make 350,000 a year plus or more. So the question you have to ask yourself, are you willing to keep paying life 270,000 every single year because you still have not learned the right skills? That's the question you have to ask.
Well, absolutely. And I think that goes to your type of mentality and the one percenters. The mentality I've always had is that, the better I am, the more money I make, and it's not indicative of the market, or it's not indicative, what's going on. And I think that, there's always that, you always have to look at what's the gap. I mean, if I'm wanting to do, twice as much, like, where's that gap come from? It's in the sales dialogue. Like, that is a huge expense. That's a huge expense, because loan officers out there right now, and I talk to loan officers all the time, right? And they just don't want to make the calls because, they just don't know what the conversations I think to have. And you have to walk people through that. But think about that, the lack of wanting to make that call or do those activities because you don't feel like you have the knowledge, the wherewithal, you feel like you're just going to really, because that your conversations are not going to be where they need to be, you're costing yourself so much money.
Yeah. You'll always feel nervous and uncertain if you don't know exactly what questions to ask at the right time in that conversation that get the prospect to literally persuade themselves. If you don't know that step-by-step structure, you are always going to lack confidence in your calls, and it will cause you not to do a lot of your calls because you don't have certainty. You can only have confidence and certainty if you know exactly what to do step by step in your sales process and exactly what questions to ask and how. It's not just the question, but it's how to ask it. It's your verbal pausing. It's your tone. There's so many things that go into that. And once you learn those skills, you literally can sell anything. You can be a loan officer, quit your job tomorrow and go sell cars and be the number one salesperson in the dealership. You can quit your job in cars and go sell life insurance, be the number one salesperson in 2 months in that entire company. You can quit your job as a life insurance agent and go and sell homes and be the number one realtor in your office extremely quickly. It doesn't matter what you say. You can go sell SaaS or cybersecurity, whatever you want. The skills transfer with you.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with that. There's no doubt about it. That's a great thing about a program like yours, is because it's transferable to anywhere. If if you're a loan officer right now and you're like, I'll crush it over here, now I'm going to go do this. It's transferable when you take that type of skill set. Absolutely. I can't love this enough, because it's just like the chains just get taken off once you that dialogue and you have those great conversations, and it's just the income is it really just untap it, right? And so, like, when I was in my coaching, I had to use the same type of thing when I was trying to move somebody along. And what I could say is that too is, again, a lot of the things you're saying, there's little intricacies and nuances that you have to just continue to work on. And it's going to take time, but little things in your program. I remember, for example, that I've used so many times. Is that a little problem for you? You know, like, and you say, you're saying little, and they're like, no, it's actually a big problem, right? Because they're telling themselves, but it's just timing it right, knowing what you're looking for, and you're making them they're convincing themselves. And again, it's like anything you're trying to do. If you're trying to, you can use this for moving the needle when it comes to being, a team leader, for example, just having your team and bringing out those issues to where they can, make changes, because that's really what we're trying to do, is we're trying to create change. Yeah. And when they are the ones that are creating that, that dialogue as well.
Yeah. All selling is change.
Yeah.
It's how good you are at getting the right questions in there, like I said, at the right time, that allow the prospect to feel in their mind that it's far more risky for them to stay in status quo and not pay for your services. Okay. Whereas they feel it's way less risky to get the money together to invest in your product or service to solve their problems. Okay. It's all about which is more risky. And so for most salespeople, they get down to it, and it's more risky because they don't know the right questions to ask to pull out the prospect's emotion. They don't know how to help the prospect feel urgency in their mind. And so the prospect views the problem here, the price here, it's not that bad. Okay. But your questions allow them to have such a massive gap in their mind. Here's where they are. Here's where they want to be. Everything that's in between is all these problems now that they didn't realize they had. And so it's far more risky in the prospect's mind if they don't do anything about solving the problems than it is to buy what you're offering to solve it. Yeah. That's what selling is.
Yeah. And again, we can go back to the example I used. If the conversation is nurtured into, towards the end of that, someone says, man, I know if I use your program, I could do 10 more deals a month and make $20,000 more a month, $240,000 a year. Your program costs, I don't know all that, but I'm just saying, I'm just throwing a number out there. It's going to cost $20,000 or 40, even $30,000, whatever. And I'm just saying, let's just say $20,000 even, right?
Yeah.
To make up a $240,000 gap. Like, what in the heck would I be doing not to do that?
Yeah, they would feel it's more risky for them not to do anything and keep losing deals that they could be making. Whereas it's far less risky to get the funds together to solve the problem and start making all these other deals. Far more riskier to do nothing.
It is. I love this because, again, I just think it's a love language, because it's I always liken it to if somebody in your family was under real health risks, and you were having this conversation, they came to realize, like, listen, if I don't make a change, like, I could literally die. Yeah. And because, not that we're doing out everything that's serious when it comes to selling, but I just always look at it as such a love language, because we can use it in so many ways for the good. And it's not about trickery. It's not, and that's what I love about it more than anything. It's not the beat you over the head and, hey, get in my program just because I want you in my program. It's what's best for them. We're identifying whether we can help them in the first place at all.
Most salespeople are taught that selling is adversarial. It's you against the prospect, trying to win them over, manipulate them over to buy what you're offering so you can make money. I call that commission breath. You have to learn, and this is what we train all these companies out there and all these salespeople, is that selling is collaborative.
Yeah.
It's not adversarial. It's you working with the prospect to solve problems that they might not even thought they had. It's collaborative. Once you learn that and you learn the right questions to ask, making $300,000, $350,000 a year becomes attainable in any industry. I don't care what you're in.
I love it. We could go on and on and on forever about this, but I love some of your stuff, the commitment questions. When you get down to it, and them telling themselves why. And again, it's all about them telling themselves, not you telling them. It's just a beautiful it's
Sure.
such art, you know, when you put it all together, and it's because at the end, you know, somebody's buying from you because they feel great about buying from you, not feel because they feel like they just, you know, they were beat over the
Well,
head.
realize this, people don't buy your product or service. They don't buy the thing. They buy the results
Yeah.
of that thing.
Yes.
Once you start to understand that, selling becomes very easy.
Love it. I love it.
I hope that helped.
Oh, it helps a ton, and I hope. I mean, anybody that doesn't help, you know, I'd really encourage you to look in the mirror and say, hey, you know, how many deals am I losing because I'm not at the top of the food chain where I could be with my sales practices and my dialogue? Because, you know, it's like I have this script writer that scripts out, you know, like he scripted a couple of my videos that I have, and I'm sure you do as well. And like I can write it all day and think, okay, I did a pretty good job.
Yeah.
And then I may not, and some people may not notice it, but then if you watch both videos, you put both videos together, right?
Yeah.
At the end of his video, they're going to be like I was even, he did this last video, and at the end I was like, holy crap, man, I'm like pumped up, right? Like, or you can watch mine and be like, oh, that's okay, right? Like there's nuances, there's little things, subtleties to this that you think, hey, I'm kind of doing that, but you're probably not doing it at the highest level. And for me,
your income, it's all about results is your income.
Yeah.
If you're not making multiple six figures a year or more, like multiple, like we even have salespeople that will come to us, they're already making 200,000 a year, 250,000 a year. And we tweak their process and teach them the step-by-step structure of NEPQ, and they'll double their income. The next year, they'll make $500,000 in commissions. We have salespeople that come to us that make 350 already. We'll help them double it the next year. I mean, good gosh, you know, going even from 250,000 to making 400,000 or 500,000 is a massive difference in your lifestyle and what you can do. Money never gives a person happiness. It just gives you more options.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter if you're making 20 grand a year, 50, 80, 150. Once you learn NEPQ and those tweaks that we're talking about, I mean, we have salespeople that quadruple income, like even more than that. It's crazy.
Yeah. And listen, I'm a testament to the fact that I'm making really good money. I'm not going to say what I make on air, but
right.
I do make a lot of money, and I still understand, like, I have gaps and I need to continue to work on mine. It's an ever evolving process. And it's just like anything, it's constant coaching. I would never be I would never be where I want to be on my sales dialogue. Never, ever will be there. And you probably are the same way. You're continuously trying to get even better.
Always learning.
I'm sure that you probably listen to calls back. I'm sure you're doing everything you can to become better and better. So I would say, lose the ego if you're out there. The good thing is it's great. Like, I remember when I was powerlifting and I was strong, and I ended up being ranked number 1 at one point. And so at one point I figured out my hamstrings were weak. That was the lagging. And I was excited. Like, I was pumped. And you're like, why are you pumped about your hamstring being weak? Because I knew, okay, I've got to hammer that. My hamstrings are going to be the strongest thing on my body, because then my squat and deadlift are going to go up. And guess what? When I did that, I never, the rest of my career, missed a lift on a squat or deadlift because of my hamstrings. They were the strongest part of me. And the point being is that get excited about the fact that there's so much more growth. Get excited about, hey, your sales dialogue can get better, because that's just going to grow to more sales.
The biggest thing that holds salespeople back from progressing and making more money is their ego, because they think they know everything about selling, because they might make 100 grand a year, 150, or even 250. And so because of that, they never learn more advanced skills to keep making more money, and they just stagnate and stay the same.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you
that can all be changed.
I can tell you, I don't care. I can make $4 million a year, and I'd still be like, there's something else I can get better. And I do not make $4 million now, but I'm just saying, like, I don't know. I just believe in it. I believe in this subject so much because
Yeah.
There's so many things you can do with it. You know, you could be a loan officer and you could be like me where I'm, you know, doing this, my other, you know, my coaching as well. And, you know I can continue to work on that. And because at the end of the day, like I want to help as many people as I can. And to do
100%.
that, I have to first, they have to understand themselves they need help.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful thing. So
100%. Well, man, thanks for having me on here. I've got a hard stop soon. Anything else you want to know?
yeah, I mean, how do we get a hold of you? And I know you have some awesome programs and you have a great Facebook page.
Yeah,
Tell us about
I'd
that.
say the way that if any of your listeners want to learn more about the training or just want help to sell more, just have them join our Facebook group. I can actually send you the link here.
Okay.
If you want me to, I'll send you the link. And it's called Sales Revolution. So if you just go on your Facebook and type in Sales Revolution, it'll pull up Jeremy Miner. We go live as a company. I go live in there 3 times a week. My CEO goes live in there twice a week. Give you daily tips, training. We've got a lot of free resources in there. In fact, when somebody joins our private Facebook group, we give them a full-on training. We just message it to them right away on how to prevent objections from even happening. So it's a masterclass I did on certain questions you can ask in your sales conversations that prevent objections from happening. We just give it to people for free once they join our private Facebook group. So Sales Revolutions, the private Facebook group. And then Adam, I can email that link to you if you want me to.
Absolutely. And I can, again, attest to, it is a great, you know, Jeremy gives a ton away. So get in there and just learn and continue to grow. But yes, it's a very giving group. It's not all just super spam in there and everything going on. He gives away a lot.
We're all about getting salespeople and companies results. That's why we have the Facebook group.
Yeah.
The only reason.
Works. It works. Well, I appreciate it. And I look for continued success out of you and all the people that you're helping. And, you know, folks, get with him, get on a Facebook group, stop screwing around. You have a gap to fill, go fill it.
Sure. We'll do our best to help everybody for sure.
I know you will. Remember, guys, limited risks equals limited income.